Each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I also want to lend my thanks to the gentlelady from North Carolina for her stewardship of the legislation we're addressing this week. I'm offering this amendment because I believe it is critically important for parents to have the ultimate say in the education of their children. And while I first want to say that I support, as my colleague from Kentucky, Mr. Massey, does, eliminating the Department of Education altogether and leaving this to parents in the states, and while I would frankly prefer to just block grant dollars to the states and give them full control in the absence of actually eliminating the Department of Education, which my next amendment will address, then if we're going to be operating in this framework, then we might as well ensure that parents at least can have the benefit of dollars getting to them directly to be able to do as they see fit to educate their parents. The Parents' Bill of Rights is designed to try to empower parents, give them the ability to see what their children are learning, see the curriculum. Despite the wailing and gnashing of teeth of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle with wild accusations of book banning that is completely inaccurate and devoid of fact, the fact is we're trying to empower parents to be able to see what their children are learning. My amendment, though, would give parents recourse by allowing them to take their tax dollars, the dollars that they send to Washington for a purpose, and put it towards the education of their choice. Again, I would rather they not be laundering the money through this godforsaken town. I would rather that money be going directly to the schools in their neighborhoods. But if it's going to come here, I'd like them to at least get the benefit of getting that money back to be able to use to educate their children the way they believe is best for them. I introduced this policy as a standalone bill called the School Act in 2020 with my good friend Senator Rand Paul, when parents' tax dollars were going to schools that closed their doors during pandemic, that shut kids out of schools, that forced them into the corners with masks. The results of that have been catastrophic. 23 Baltimore schools have 0 students proficient in math per state test results. Chicago Democrats are sounding the alarm on 55 schools reporting no proficiency in math or reading, and there's very serious concerns. In 2022, the National Center for Education Statistics evaluated the progress of children during the pandemic and revealed reading ability had suffered the largest decline since 1990. To my colleagues who say that this defunds schools, first off, whose dollars are these anyway? It's the American people's dollars. This government takes dollars and then does stuff with it. We want to make sure that parents can use their dollars the way that they think would be the best for their kids. We're returning more families' money to them so that they have greater flexibility to provide the best possible education for their kids. That is the goal of this amendment, and with that, I would reserve.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the amendment.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is a fairly simple amendment. It would just sabotage public education by transferring money in the public school system to the private school system. It would open up funds to children in public schools to those already in private school. They would get that a lot of money would be diverted that way, and it includes homeschooling. And who's going to audit the money that the parents get for homeschooling their children? Furthermore, how are you going to figure out how much money each child gets? Because Title I is based on a formula that involves poverty. If it is a low-income child, will they get more money to go to a private school than a higher-income person who the formula did not recognize as far as getting money? Those are just complications, but basically it's a private school voucher program where those already in private school can take public money out of the public system and reduce the amount of money available for public schools. I reserve the balance of my time.
Virginia reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I would just add a couple of responses to my friend, the gentleman from Virginia. Both of us are graduates of the University of Virginia, and I'm an extraordinary proud graduate of Virginia, where Thomas Jefferson, frankly, helped frame the public diffusion of knowledge, as the gentleman knows, and trying to set up a structure for public schools to be able to be a broader access for more Americans and give them the ability and the benefits of public education. I was public school educated K through law school. So was my wife, raised by a single mom, who went to the Texas A&M University and the University of Texas School of Law, where we met. I'm a big proponent of the public education system, but I am a bigger proponent of empowering parents. I'm a bigger proponent of being able to have checks and balances within the education system and allowing parents the ability to take care of their kids, right? That's what this is about. When we talk about homeschooling, the purpose here is you've got parents who were left on the outside looking in while the public school systems abandoned them during the pandemic. And they had to go do something about it. And they're abandoning them now by not providing them the proficiency of education, as I just talked about in Baltimore and Chicago and in schools across the country. To say that we should restrict that from the parents being able to use those dollars in private schools, say that to the hardworking parent today, scraping by to send $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 to a Catholic school because that parent wants the best education for their child. I say, let's actually empower parents. That's what this whole debate is about this week. That's why I offer this amendment, and I would reserve.
Gentleman from Texas reserves. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
I yield myself such time as I may consume. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is a well-worn debate. I think people are familiar with what happens when you take public school money and put it into private schools, and I thank the gentleman for making the amendment as simple and straightforward as he has. This would decimate rural districts where there are few school options. People in rural districts would take money out of the rural community, plop it into urban areas. And I'd just like to know how much money a family could get if they took 2 children out of public school and just kept them at home under the guise of homeschooling. How much money could they get from the public school system to do that? I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Virginia reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
My time is limited, and the gentleman has the right to close this out. I would just say that we should have a robust debate about that. This is very limited, as the gentleman pointed out. It's Title I money under the ESEAA, so this would be limited in the total economic impact, and I think it's just a nice way to be able to give some dollars to parents to be able to go take care of their children, and I would yield back.
The gentleman from Texas yields. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said, we don't know how much money a family could get if they're financially strapped, how much money they can get for pulling their children out of public schools and using the money for the allowable uses, which includes extracurricular activities. That could be a vacation to Disneyland. I don't know what they could use the money for, but they could significantly benefit financially by taking their children out of school. Rural districts will benefit. Those already in private school will benefit. And the ones that will be disadvantaged will be the school systems that are struggling to provide an education for low-income students today. I would hope we would defeat the amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Texas. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The gentleman, for what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
I would ask for a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Texas will be postponed. It is now in order to consider amendment number 20, printed in the House Report 118-12. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 20, printed in House Report number 118-12, offered by Mr. Roy of Texas.
Pursuant to House Resolution 241, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I thank the gentlelady from North Carolina for her efforts this week and her efforts and devotion to education generally in her career. Look, I'm offering this amendment because I believe that we should be empowering states and local schools and communities to be able to take care of our kids. I don't think the federal government has any business in this area for the most part. I don't believe the Department of Education should exist in the first place. When I look at Article 1, Section 8, I don't see anything about education. And so from my standpoint, and I believe it's a sentiment shared by many on my side of the aisle, and I've heard many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle bemoaning federal intervention this week. So I think let's just call the question then. If we have concerns about federal intervention into state affairs, then let's take the dollars and let's block grant them back to the states. Now, my friend Mr. Massey has a sense of Congress that we should abolish the Department of Education, which I fully support. But if we have true concerns here, to my Democratic colleagues who are concerned about, oh my gosh, heaven forbid that we have parents be able to see what's in the curriculum, this is too much federal intervention. Well, how about we look at the overall federal intervention in general, and let's block grant those dollars to states and allow state governments, local communities, local school boards, and parents to make all the decisions. We'll just take care of your problem right now. And with that, I would reserve.
The gentleman from Texas reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman for Virginia seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this would eliminate all of the targeted resources under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, consolidated into one view. If you just take Title I, that money is targeted towards low-income areas. There are targets to rural areas, to migrants. Generally speaking, the mainstream education can be well done with the local and state funding, but there are areas where there are troubles. English is a second language, migrants, low income, where the federal government comes in and targets money because, generally speaking, within the political give and take, these are the ones that are left out. Those who are generally left out and supported by ESEA are the exact ones that would be disadvantaged under this. When you fund education with the real estate tax, as we do in the United States today, you almost guarantee inequity in education because the more wealthy areas can do better. And ESEA, primarily under Title I, goes into areas that are low income and have less resources, and they can get help from the federal government. That would be decimated by this amendment. I would hope we would defeat it, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Virginia reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
At this time, I would like to yield to my friend, the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Burkeen.
The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Imagine a world where parents, school board members, and teachers were really running the show in the classroom, not bureaucrats thousands of miles away. Imagine a world where parents didn't have to worry about a hypersexualized woke culture when they send their most cherished individuals to the classroom, that what they've taught them at home, they are assured that what is taught in that school system is not going to counter that. We had such a world prior to 1979. It was a world that our founders foresaw. It's why they believed in the concept of laboratories of democracy, laboratories of experimentation, where across state lines you could learn from both success and failures. It is why in the 18 enumerated powers of Article I, Section 8, you do not find the Department of Education. It's why the 10th Amendment says all powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. It's why Thomas Jefferson said in order for the federal government to be involved in education, you'd have to have a constitutional amendment. And again, prior to 1979, we had such a world. The creation of the Department of Education has only allowed a reduction in educational attainment. I'll end with this. James Madison made this statement. He said, imagine a world where we actually ascribe to the enumerated powers. I'm paraphrasing. He said, if Congress can apply this, if they can take the care of religion, if they can do this, go outside the 18 enumerated powers, they can take care of religion into their own hands, they can establish teachers in every county, every state, and every parish, pay them out of the public treasury. They can take into their own hands the education of children, establishing in like manner schools throughout the Union. They may assume the provision for the poor. They may undertake the regulation of all roads other than post office roads. In short, everything from the highest object of state legislation down to the most minute object of police would be thrown to the power of Congress. James Madison foresaw this. In 1792, he stood on this floor and talked about it. We need to return to the brilliance of our
Gentleman's time has
founders.
expired. Gentleman from Texas reserves. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Virginia reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank the Speaker. I thank my friend from Oklahoma for his support of the amendment. I agree with every word that he just shared with the body. And I would just note, again, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have been raising a lot of concerns that my side of the aisle is inserting the federal government into the business of the states and localities. Look, I will acknowledge, I don't love going down this road. I don't think we should have to. I think this should all be left to the states. And if the folks in California, or the folks in New York, or the folks in some state want to put this garbage in front of their kids, then let them hash that out. But as long as we're going to have the federal government inserting itself, which this body, led predominantly by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, have been pushing now for years, at a bare minimum, shouldn't we ensure that parents have the ability to see what's in the curriculum? Parents know what books are in the library. That's the debate this week. What we're trying to do with this amendment is essentially call the bluff of my Democratic colleagues. Put your money where your mouth is. If you don't like the fact that the federal government is involved in education, welcome to the party. Let's give the money right back to the states and local governments where they can do what's best for the people in their states and local communities. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman from Texas yields. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself the balance of the time. Mr. Chairman, this would concentrate funding where there are high concentration of students, not where there is a high concentration of poverty, as the present formula gives. It will remove targeted money for teachers, and incredibly, it would remove targeted funding for family engagement. I thought that's why we were here. This amendment would remove money targeted for family engagement. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Texas. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. And for what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
I would request the yeas and nays.
Does the gentleman request a recorded vote?
Request a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Texas will be postponed. It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 21, printed in House Report 118-12. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 21, printed in House Report number 118-12, offered by Mr. Smith of New Jersey.
Pursuant to House Resolution 241, the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Smith, and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me thank Chairwoman Virginia Fox for the extraordinary job she is doing on this important parental rights legislation, H.R. 5. I do want to thank my friend from Virginia. The debate has been civil. It has been disciplined. And obviously, we have a major fundamental difference, but there's respect on both sides. So thank you, Chairwoman Fox, for your leadership. Mr. Chairman, last month, Adriana Olivia Kutch, a student at Central Regional High School in my congressional district, tragically took her own life just days after a group of students violently attacked her in the school hallway and then shared the video of the horrific assault online. Adriana's family told the Asbury Park Press that, quote, she took her own life after being threatened online, attacked on school grounds, and then later harassed when video of the attack was spread via social media. My amendment today, Mr. Chairman, would add to the bill's disclosure requirement of violent incidences a provision that schools notify parents of whether recordings exist of such violence. The amendment recognizes that bullying and violence are often compounded and the victim further traumatized, further humiliated, and further mocked when the crime is videotaped and shared on social media. Once informed, the parents are empowered to hopefully better able to shield, to better comfort, and to protect their child. This amendment is a step in the right direction of what must be a full-court press to tackle online bullying. Many school districts, as my colleagues already know, do have harassment, intimidation, and bully, or HIB policies, which should include parental notification of online bullying occurrences. What happened in the Central Regional High School must never happen again. There must be no higher priority for us than school safety and protecting every student from violence. I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman, with what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the underlying bill has a lot of ambiguity about things like what is an injury, what is violent activity, does there have to be an injury? If there has to be an injury, then a shooting where the bullet misses and there's no injury would not be covered, but somebody pushes somebody and they slip and get a bloody nose, that would be an injury. And that would be violent activity, but it's very poorly defined. The second is aware of a video recording. Does that include fellow students' cell phones and other things? Does it include a monitoring, the school system monitoring? And then it doesn't say anything about numerous rights and laws, rights of privacy, and what to do after you find out. What can you do about it? That's a little unclear. It doesn't say what rights you have to the video or anything like that. I think it causes more questions than answers, and I would hope we'd defeat the amendment.
Does the gentleman reserve?
I reserve.
Gentleman from
Mr.
Virginia
Chairman,
reserves.
after
The
the
gentleman from New
terrible-
Jersey is recognized.
After the terrible incident and the loss of this young woman, there were meetings with the school board, and the number of students who came forward who talked about the bullying and the videotaping of bullying that happens and how threatened they feel. It seems to me, out of abundance of caution and respect and concern for the well-being of these individuals, these young people, having the school leaders step up and say, we know of a video recording, we've got to make sure the parents know. That young woman, in this case, sitting in her room, watching the video over and over again, and all the extreme mockings that she endured, that may have driven her to suicide. We don't know absolutely, but we do know that it has a very debilitating impact on a young person to see all of that. And I watched the video, Mr. Chairman, and I was moved to see her on the ground being kicked and punched. And again, there was a video of this. So many of the parents have no idea. They don't monitor social media necessarily. Why not have the school leaders make sure that that is transferred over to the parents so they can step in and love their child and try to protect their child from all the psychological and other harms that accrue from that video. So this is a simple amendment, and I would hope that my colleagues would vote for it. Yield back.
The gentleman from New Jersey yields. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
I yield back.
The gentleman from Virginia yields. Question on the amendment is offered by the gentleman from New Jersey. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. It is now in order to consider amendment number 22, printed in the House Report 118-12. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New York seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 22, printed in House Report number 118-12, offered by Ms. Tenney of New York.
Pursuant to House Resolution 241, the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Tenney, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the underlying bill and my amendment to the Parents' Bill of Rights. The amendment would require public schools to inform parents on decisions to terminate college credit courses, including dual enrollments and advanced placement courses. As the cost of colleges and universities continues to skyrocket, many students depend on these highly affordable high school credit courses. It's an essential tool for students to reduce their time and their total cost in attending college. And case in point, I graduated from college in 1983, and the total tuition for to attend Colgate University was $12,000. Today, it's nearly $80,000 for room and board and tuition. So this is a way to try to ameliorate that problem with many students who want to seek college admission and college credit. However, unfortunately, the woke radical left-wing school administrators in states such as New York are working to terminate gifted and talented programs, including the college credit courses, in their misguided attempt to further their far-left social equity agenda. These administrators don't actually want equal opportunity, but to tear down our top-performing students to promote their diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. This is simply wrong. I've heard from parents across my district who've actually moved out of their own homes to find schools where their children can attend that have these college credit courses offered. Parents should have the right to know if these important programs are terminated and if they are being eliminated in the name of equity. We should be forming education policy that allows children to flourish and not one that is preoccupied with sabotaging those children who choose to succeed academically. At the end of the day, sunlight is often the best disinfectant, and I hope the transparency offered by this amendment and ends this harmful attempt at the far left's social engineering. I'm grateful to the chair, Dr. Fox, for her support of my amendment, and I encourage all of my colleagues to support this common sense amendment that is much needed today for our parents to have equal rights. Thanks so much. I yield back.
The gentleman from Virginia, for what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this is just another unfunded mandate placed on the school systems that they have to do as a condition for receiving Title I funds. And then you look at what is involved if a class is eliminated because there's no teacher for that class or no student interest. For example, if no one signs up for a particular foreign language, and so the course is dropped, we have to now notify all of the parents as a condition of getting Title I funds. If a teacher, the only teacher who taught that language, if she or he decides to retire and that course is not taught, you have to notify everyone as a condition of getting Title I funds. This amendment does nothing to improve parental engagement. It just adds to the another federal law, along with the bathroom bills that we've heard, attacks on LGBTQ individuals, attacks on trans youth. Now we have another report that has to be made. I would hope we'd defeat the amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Virginia reserves. Without objection, the gentlewoman from New York can reclaim her time.
Thank you. I yield my time to the Majority Leader, Mr. Scalise. 1 minute.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, and thank the gentlelady from New York for yielding and for her amendment to such an important bill. The Parents' Bill of Rights is a basic concept, but it's a powerful statement that says we stand with parents and children in the ability for them to have a say in their kids' education. You would think, who would be against this? Why do we need a law to do what everybody should think is the right thing to do? Unfortunately, what we've seen through this debate is that the left is scared to death of parents having more of a say in their kids' education. Union bosses are scared to death of parents having a say in their kids' education. And then it begs the question, why would they be so afraid of parents wanting to see the curriculum that their kids are experiencing when they go to school? Well, I think we all saw why their concern is so vocal. This all happened during COVID. As we went from in-classroom learning to virtual learning, millions of parents actually got a glimpse into what was going on in the classrooms of their kids. Now, I'm sure most of those parents thought they were just going to be watching their kids learn how to read, how to write, how to break down sentence structures, how to learn math. And some of that was going on. But what alarmed parents are all the other things that had absolutely nothing to do with their kids having an opportunity to achieve the American dream. And in fact, some of the things that were going on undermined the basic values that those parents are teaching their kids at home. Things that had nothing to do with helping those kids learn and be prepared for better opportunities in the future. And they started asking questions. And they were right to ask those questions, except the Biden administration got concerned because the union bosses didn't want those parents to see what was going on. You had the Justice Department trying to tag parents as domestic terrorists for showing up at a school board meeting, for God's sake, because they cared about what was happening in their kids' schools. It shouldn't have taken an act of Congress to give parents that right. But if it does, I am proud to stand with the parents and the kids against the union bosses who don't want the parents to have that right to care about their kids' education. For God's sake, we shouldn't have to be here doing this. The union shouldn't be fighting this every step of the way. But it really shows you what they care about if they don't want parents to have these rights. And so thank goodness we have Virginia Fox's committee, Julia Letlow's bill, members of Congress coming together and saying the parents ought to have that ability. Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter what your political viewpoint is, because anybody in this country, part of the American dream is being able to pass on better opportunity to your kids than what you had. And the best way to do that, the greatest equalizer, is education. And if you've got to be concerned about what's happening in your kid's classroom, and the school doesn't want you to see what's happening in your kid's classroom, you really ought to be alarmed. But every parent ought to have that right. Because when kids are sent to school, they should be learning how to get more opportunity, how to advance and have more success than we had. And if they're being taught things that undermine that, every parent ought to be able to know about that. And under this bill, they finally will. This is a power that every parent should already have, but we saw during COVID. Some parents had that ability, but unfortunately, many parents were denied that ability to just have basic understanding of what was happening in their kids' classrooms. Millions of kids were denied education, which ultimately means those millions of kids are denied opportunity. No one should stand for that. So on this day and on every day, I am proud to stand with the parents and the kids if anybody gets in their way, especially union bosses who don't want the parents to be able to have that opportunity to stand up for their kids. Let's stand with the parents and the kids. Let's pass this bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from New York reserves. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Virginia reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
I reserve. Do you have anything else? No, I yield my time.
The gentlewoman from New York yields. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself the balance of the time. We've heard a lot about people who can't speak at school board meetings because they're being arrested. I'll reiterate, the only ones being arrested at school board meetings are those the police believe are committing crimes. I'd point out that this is another federal law, along with the bathroom bill that's in the bill, the attacks on LGBTQ and trans youth. But there's nothing in this amendment to increase parental say over which courses are being offered. Some courses are deleted, like African American Studies and AP African American Studies in Florida. But there's no money for new courses. There's no money for school construction in this legislation. There's no after-school program funding. There's no money for teacher salaries. There's no money for counselors or psychologists. It's just a list of things that most parents can do anyway. No money for actual parental involvement. Those amendments were defeated. And so I would hope that this additional requirement as a condition of receiving Title I funding not be adopted, that the entire bill be defeated. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Virginia yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from New York. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, proceedings will now resume on those amendments on which further proceedings were postponed in the following order. Amendment number 10 by Mr. Green of Tennessee. Amendment number 13 by Ms. Jacobs of California. Amendment number 15 by Mr. Massey of Kentucky. Amendment number 17 by Mr. McCormick of Georgia. Amendment number 19 by Mr. Roy of Texas. Amendment number 20 by Mr. Roy of Texas. The chair will reduce to 2 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote after the first vote in this series. The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on the amendment number 10